Godshill is a quintessentially English village nestled amongst the Isle of Wight's picturesque countryside. This charming village with its thatched cottages, tea rooms and craft shops offers a delightful escape. Ascend to the medieval church and explore the unique village within a village, a captivating model village that's enchanted visitors for over 70 years. Our adventure today includes Appuldurcombe House, one of the grandest on all the Isle, now a ruin, and a heartwarming visit to the nearby donkey sanctuary. Join us for another unforgettable experience in the heart of the Isle of Wight. Godshill is an enchanting village and offers a delightful slice of England, captivating visitors and locals alike with its timeless beauty and rich history. Whether drawn by the allure of the historical architecture, the promise of a traditional cream tea, or the simple pleasure of a village stroll, Godshill delivers. Once on the Isle of Wight, its central location makes it relatively easy to reach. It's roughly a 30-minute drive by car from any ferry port. If you have seen the previous videos in this series, then you'll know I've been staying in Shanklin, and my visit to Godshill was early on the second morning of my 3-day stay. For navigation systems, this postcode is useful. It will bring you into the village where the Old Smithy car park is free, something quite rare in the Isle of Wight. For those relying on public transport, Southern Vectis provides extensive bus services across the island. Godshill is primarily served by Route 2 and 3, which runs frequently between Newport, Shanklin, Sandown, Ventnor and Ryde. Check the bus website for more information. So it can get pretty busy here. I've arrived early before the shops open at 10 o'clock. It's about 9:30 now. Wanted to have a quick look around and get some photos of the thatched properties before they're covered in tourists, and also to take you to the church because it's really pretty up there. I just want to get some uninterrupted views. It was a misty, murky start to the day, and it seems far too early to be speaking of alcohol, but the Griffin is one of the welcoming pubs right opposite the car park, a handsome stone building that began its life as a 17th century coaching inn. Let's walk up the high street while it's early and tourist free. We'll be back later to explore the shops when they're open. This is the oldest Wesleyan chapel still in use on the island. It dates to Queen Victoria's coronation in 1838 and was replaced from an earlier one built in 1790. With the exception of the pubs and restaurants, the shops, tea rooms and model village are open 10 AM to 4 PM, but do check websites for seasonal changes to that. The Old Smithy, now a bustling retail and cafe complex when open, stands on the site of the vital village blacksmith, a role central to rural life for centuries. Its transformation in the 1950s, initially selling lucky horseshoes and serving teas, marked a shift towards tourism. We'll pop back later when it's open. Now you get to the church from Church Hollow, and there's this little path over here which you can see is closed for some reason, and this takes you right up to the church. I guess they're doing some work on it, but we'll go up to the top of the church from here, I guess. Godshill's charm is deeply rooted in its long and fascinating history. It stands as one of the Isle of Wight's ancient parishes, its existence documented even before the Norman conquest and the completion of the Domesday Book in 1086. Its evocative name is tied to a persistent local legend. Storytellers recount how the foundations of the village church, initially laid at the foot of the hill for convenience, were meticulously moved overnight to the summit on 3 successive occasions. Accepting this divine intervention, the builders constructed the church on the hill, cementing the name Godshill. Intriguingly, historical accounts suggest the hill held significance long before Christianity arrived, serving as a place of pagan worship. A highlight of the uphill walk is passing the cluster of charming thatched cottages nestled close to the church. Reputedly built in the 15th century, possibly to house the church masons, these picturesque dwellings contribute significantly to Godshill's idyllic image and make for perfect photographs. The view towards the churchyard, framed by these cottages, presents a timeless vignette of English village life and is often seen on fudge packets and chocolate boxes, hence the phrase chocolate box cottages or village. Reaching the summit reveals All Saints' Church in its full glory. Its dominant position makes it a landmark visible for miles around. The building itself is impressive, a large medieval structure primarily constructed from sandstone in the early 15th century, built mainly in the perpendicular style and possibly the fourth to stand on this site. A notable and unusual feature is the double nave design, reflecting its historical dual purpose. The north church served the parish, while the southern side was designated for the workers from the nearby Appuldurcombe Priory, with slots visible in the central arches where a wooden partition once stood. The undisputed treasure within All Saints is the unique wall painting known as the Lily Cross. Located on the eastern wall of the south transept, this mid-15th century artwork depicts Christ crucified, not on a traditional wooden cross, but on the flowering stem of a lily. It is the only known example of such a depiction in Britain, although similar motifs exist in Europe. Possibly painted by an Italian Renaissance artist, it survived the ravages of the Reformation by being whitewashed over and rediscovered in 1842. Today carefully cleaned, its colours remain remarkably vibrant. Beyond the Lily Cross, the church is a repository of local history through its collection of monuments, particularly those commemorating the influential Worsley family. They became synonymous with Appuldurcombe and Godshill from the 16th century when Sir James Worsley married Anne Lee, heiress to the estate. Their influence is indelibly marked on the village, most visibly through the numerous family memorials. We'll visit Appuldurcombe House later in this video. It's actually starting to brighten up a bit after the gloomy start. Let's make our way back down into the centre of the village. The lovely thatched tea room on the left has sadly closed down. Let's hope it's replaced soon. Daisy Daisy is a sweet and interesting shop with beautiful fair trade and ethical gifts from around the world. Located in the heart of the village within the peaceful grounds of the old vicarage lies a captivating attraction. The model village, Godshill, offers a miniature representation of Godshill and the nearby Shanklin Old Village as they were in the 1920s and 30s. Meticulously crafted 1/10 scale models of cottages, pubs, churches and more are surrounded by stunning landscaped gardens and a charming garden railway that chugs through the miniature landscape. For all the information about visiting, see their official website. The history of the model village began in 1952 during the post-war tourism boom on the Isle of Wight. Mr. Dams, who owned the old vicarage in Godshill, started constructing the first models in his garden. This early version of the attraction mainly focused on recreating the popular tourist spot Shanklin Old Village, featuring landmarks like St Blasius Church and Shanklin Chine. The model village was transformed in the late 1960s when Robin Thwaites bought it. He expanded the collection significantly by adding detailed models of Godshill itself. Since 2004, it's been managed by his daughter Penny and her husband Stuart Dyer. As the current owners, they uphold the family-run tradition, ensuring the village remains a cherished and nostalgic experience. Around 1971, a focus on cultivating the gardens and growing trees to scale began, leading to the prestigious RHS Partner Garden status. It's filled with meticulous details, including tiny figures engaged in daily life, adding a touch of realism and humour, and the models are faithfully reproduced and fantastic replicas, capturing the essence of the real buildings with remarkable accuracy. Dominating the scene, much like its real-life counterpart on the hill above, is the impressive model of All Saints Church. This is reportedly the largest single model in the village, a recreation attributed to former owner Robin Thwaites in the 1970s, requiring around 600 hours of dedicated work. Its present connects directly to the actual 14th century parish church we just visited. Keen eyes might spot replicas of famous village pubs like the Griffin. Perhaps the most unique feature here is the mind-bending model within a model within a model. Standing before it, observing the village recursively shrinking into itself, offers a truly peculiar and memorable photo opportunity. Next we step into the reimagined Old Shanklin village, another jewel of the Isle of Wight, famed for its picturesque qualities. Here a delightful cluster of models recreates its distinctive character. More charming thatched cottages, traditional pubs, including a replica of the well-known Crab Inn, alongside tearooms and gift shops, all reflecting the ambience of the real old village. A major feature in this section is the model of Shanklin Chine, the famous wooded coastal gorge. It became the Isle of Wight's very first tourist attraction, and we'll be visiting that in a future video for a lovely evening visit to the old village and chine. Near the chine model, visitors might spot a distinctive bright yellow building representing the Upper Chine School. Adding movement and delight to the tour is the miniature railway, described as a snapshot of the island line of yesteryear. It evokes the golden age of island rail travel. Introduced in 1997 after a year of track-laying work, it winds its way through the scenery. Part of the fun is spotting the quirky details. Some visitors have reported seeing trains carrying zoo animals or even dinosaurs in their carriages. Dating back to the 12th century, St Blasius Church in Shanklin began as a private chapel for the influential Lisle family of Shanklin Manor, originally dedicated to St John the Baptist. For centuries it remained a manorial chapel, with strong ties to the nearby parishes of Brading and Bonchurch. It wasn't until 1853 that St Blasius officially became the parish church for Shanklin. A significant rebuilding and expansion took place in the mid-19th century, giving it a much more Victorian appearance, including the addition of transepts and the raised roof with the bell turret. Despite these changes, the church retained elements of its Norman origins and continues to be the focal point of the Shanklin community. I tried to get into the wedding via the church gate, but I was just too big. Throughout the village, other charming details await discovery. Look out for the model airstrip featuring vintage aircraft like the de Havilland Fox Moth and Tiger Moth. Or even the ill-fated R101 airship, and even hot air balloons. The entire experience encourages visitors to slow down, look closely and appreciate humorous scenes and tiny inhabitants that bring this miniature world to life. What a fantastic place the model village has been. Really enjoyed that. It was £8 to get around. I think it was thoroughly enjoyable. Took about an hour, but fantastic. Just before we leave the centre of Godshill to see the donkeys and the ruins of Appuldurcombe House, let's have a quick nosy around the Old Smithy shops that are now open. There are all sorts of goods to browse and purchase, from cider, jams, honey, trinkets and much, much more. I'm now making my way to the heartwarming donkey sanctuary. If you came to Godshill by bus, then it might be good to know that the number 3 can be caught from the high street, and it stops right outside the entrance to the sanctuary. This incredible place is nestled in the serene countryside of Wroxall, just a few miles from Godshill, and isn't just a field full of long-haired beauties, it's a haven built on compassion and a whole lot of love. It all started back in '87 with one lucky donkey, and fast forward to today, this 55-acre sanctuary provides a forever home to over 100 rescued donkeys, ponies and mules. The sanctuary is more than just a retirement home for these lovely creatures. Their mission is threefold: to rescue and care for those who've had a rough start, to offer them a permanent loving environment, and to open our eyes, especially the little ones, to the wonderful world and heritage of donkeys. They even facilitate beautiful therapeutic interactions, showcasing the incredible bond between humans and animals.
Lovely, aren't you? Hey?
Entry and parking are free. You can wander in and soak up all the donkey-filled joy without spending a penny. But, and this is where we come in, this incredible work relies entirely on the kindness of visitors. So you can support them by making a donation or consider adopting a donkey. You get regular updates and the warm, fuzzy feeling of directly contributing to their well-being. It's a lovely place to spend some time, especially for the little ones and animal lovers. From the donkeys, the bus can also take you to Appuldurcombe House. Well, to the top of the estate, it's about a half-a-mile walk to the entrance, around 15 minutes.
Missed it. There we are. Nice big car park. Where should we go? Over here. Well, I've arrived, but as you can see, it is absolutely tipping it down at the moment. It says it's going to clear through in about 20 minutes. So I think I'm going to wait it out for a minute before we pop in and see the house. Not really sure which is the best route down to the house, but it's undercover and I'm keeping a bit dry, so we'll go this way. Now, if you're coming here expecting a full-blown stately home that's going to keep you dry on a wet day, you are mistaken, because this is a ruin, and a lot of the areas there's no roof to the house, so we're going to stay wet as long as it rains. You see the property through the trees there. This is run by English Heritage, but it's actually free to enter, so not a bad place to come for something to do without having to buy a ticket.
The structure that remains today, a magnificent and haunting shell, was once the grandest and most striking home on the island. This masterpiece of English Baroque architecture still displays dignity in its ruined state, standing proud against the rolling downland landscape, despite being exposed to the elements. The very state of ruin is part of its modern identity, preserved not as a fully restored mansion but as a romantic testament to the passage of time. The site's recorded history begins around the year 1100, when a Benedictine priory was established here. That priory fell into a dilapidated state by the 1400s and was eventually demolished, and the land was leased for a nunnery. This period marks the arrival of the family whose name would become synonymous with Appuldurcombe for nearly 4 centuries, the Worsleys. Sir James Worsley came from Lancashire to the court of Henry VII, and through marriage and royal favour, the family secured their foothold on the Isle of Wight. The current house sits on the site of a Tudor mansion house probably built by James, the first Worsley to live here. Their rise was intertwined with the great historical shifts of the age, particularly the dissolution of monasteries under Henry VIII, which allowed ambitious gentry families like the Worsleys to acquire former monastic lands and consolidate their power. Sir Robert Worsley, the 4th Baronet, inherited the Tudor mansion in 1690, finding it in need of a great deal of repair. He decided to replace it entirely, planning a new house on a far grander scale, famously declaring he would leave not one stone standing of the old Tudor structure. The architect behind the design is unclear, but Robert could have commissioned John James to design the house in the English Baroque style, using local Isle of Wight freestone and Portland stone. Work started in 1701, and the Tudor manor house was demolished in stages, but the project overstretched his finances, and in 1713 work stopped and the house was left empty for over 50 years. Sir Robert died in 1747, and his great-nephew Sir Richard Worsley, 7th Baronet, completed the house, possibly with architect James Wyatt, who added a Tuscan colonnade and remodelled the west front. They altered the interior, raising the ceiling in the Great Hall and adding scagliola columns. Despite its current emptiness, remnants like the restored marble floor and accounts of features like a carved marble fireplace hint at its former grandeur. During this time, Appuldurcombe was a hub of sophisticated life. Sir Richard housed a magnificent art collection within its walls and entertained eminent figures of the age. In 1775, he married 17-year-old Seymour Dorothy Fleming, a celebrated beauty who brought a substantial fortune of £80,000 to the marriage. Sir Joshua Reynolds was commissioned to paint these full-length portraits of the couple. Inspired by a grand tour of Europe, which exposed him to classical landscapes and art, he commissioned Lancelot Capability Brown, the most celebrated landscape designer of the age, to redesign the parkland in 1779. Beneath the grandeur and refined taste, his marriage to Seymour was deeply unhappy, culminating in a sensational court case in 1782 when she fled with a lover and former close friend of Richard's. The law at the time regarded a woman as the property of her husband. Sir Richard hoped he could bankrupt Captain George Bizet by seeking damages. Lady Seymour tried to save Bizet, declaring in court that she had no fewer than 27 lovers, suggesting she was worthless as a wife. Sir Richard was publicly humiliated, but so was Seymour. The scandal shattered both their reputations, but he refused to divorce her to keep her dowry. He left England for several years, spending her money on antiques. Seymour, deserted and penniless, lived in Paris as a courtesan. Whilst away, he amassed a large collection of art and one of the finest collections of Greek sculptures, which he displayed on his return. Following Sir Richard Worsley's death in 1805, Seymour recovered her fortune, and the house passed to Richard's niece Henrietta. She married Charles Anderson Pelham, who became the first Earl of Yarborough in 1837. They modernised the house and it remained in the family for 50 years. The Worsley family connection to Appuldurcombe, which had lasted for almost 4 centuries, ended in 1855 when the estate was sold. It then went through a period of instability, with subsequent owners struggling to find a viable use for it due to the changing social and economic climate that made maintaining large country estates challenging. Appuldurcombe was left uninhabited by 1909 and fell into neglect. Although it was temporarily used to house troops during both World Wars, it suffered a catastrophic blow during World War II. On February 7, 1943, a German bomber dropped a mine close to the house before crashing nearby. The explosion caused significant damage to the roof and windows, accelerating the deterioration of the already neglected mansion. The bomb damage solidified Appuldurcombe's fate, transforming it from a neglected mansion into the dramatic ruin it is today. Let's have a look at what's coming next time. Join us as we discover more charming chocolate box villages and thatched cottages dotted around the west of the island. Our journey will take us to a 1,000-year-old watermill at Calbourne, a sunset hike up to the Pepper Pot, England's oldest medieval lighthouse, and a nighttime stroll around the magical Shanklin Old Town, including a visit to the renowned Shanklin Chine, the Isle of Wight's first tourist attraction and natural wonder still going strong today. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming Isle of Wight adventures, and check out the links at the end if you've missed any of the series so far. Thanks for watching, we'll see you again on the next video.